So the question here is on the Olivet Discourse. It says, thank you for the message on the Olivet Discourse. My question, would you elaborate on the confusion around the language in Matthew 24:14? And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world to all nations, and then the end will come. Until I started attending the PreTrib Study Group conferences, I assumed that this meant that all people groups would be reached by outreach from the church, and then the rapture would occur. I believed that for decades, confusing the Olivet Discourse with the Upper Room Discourse. The confusion is that some missions agencies are still taking that position. I also suspect there are some listeners who were confused like I had been and would benefit from clarification that there are two events that sound like the rapture, but are, of course, separate events. Thanks. So, great insight there, and I do think this is a common misinterpretation, both in the church but also in missions agencies. It has often been used as motivation to preach the gospel to all nations so that the end might come, so that the rapture might be realized. Now, really we have to understand that the Olivet Discourse, the key here is to understand the Olivet Discourse is spoken to Jews referencing the nation of Israel. And so this discussion about all the nations of the earth being saved is a reference to what will happen during the tribulation. I think this is describing the 144,000 Jewish evangelists going out. It's describing the ministry of the two witnesses. So this is Revelation 7, Revelation 11, and also the angel proclaiming the eternal gospel in Revelation 14. This is the ministry that's happening during the tribulation period. The gospel is going forth to all nations, and then the end will come. That's not referencing the rapture. That's referencing the second coming, the coming that happens at the end of the tribulation period, right before the establishment of the millennial kingdom. Now, why this confusion? I think there's a few reasons for this. Number one, I do think people merge Matthew 24 with the church age. Again, Matthew 24, the Olivet Discourse, is referencing the nation of Israel. The promises made to Israel in the Old Testament, when will these be fulfilled? Not in the church age, during the tribulation in the millennial kingdom. So that confusion, that merging of those two ideas is often the source of this confusion. Secondly, confusing the end with the rapture. There are two kind of events that we should not confuse. There is the rapture that happens before the tribulation, and then the end, which is referencing the second coming of Christ at the end of the tribulation, right before the millennial kingdom. And then I think the third reason there is some confusion here has to do with the influence today of post-tribulational kind of kingdom now theology. This kingdom now theology, this post-tribulational theology, believes that it is the job of the church to influence culture, to kind of help push into culture the ideas of the kingdom of God, of Christianity, of the church, and reform culture such that we usher in the kingdom of God. So there's this giant push in many sectors of Christian evangelicalism, and it's grown tremendously in the past 10 years, to say that it is the job of the church to reform culture. So get into politics, get into education, begin making a difference, because Christ will not come back, the end will not come until that work has been accomplished. And so I do think that is a huge influence today, and a way in which many are reading this text, and even those who have more of a traditional premillennial interpretation are blending systems without realizing it. So I think that's a third reason why the confusion exists. But great question, and happy to interact further on these types of questions as people have interest.